This is the PR Podcast, a show about how public relations helps you tell your story to the world. We talk with great PR practitioners who have the skills, creativity, and just plain savvy to get their clients noticed. Now here's your host, Jody Fisher.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the PR Podcast. I'm Jody Fisher. Thanks for joining us. Well, do you want to be a guest on an upcoming episode of the PR Podcast? We tape episodes every Friday, and we're always looking for new guests with a new perspective on how to do PR and how to do news better. Now, you should be a guest if you're a PR pro with a fresh view on how you do your job. Maybe you've got a special insight. Maybe you did something that really worked and you want to share it with everybody, or maybe you don't. Who knows? Or if you're a newsroom decision maker, you're a reporter, an editor, a producer, a photographer. Basically, this is the show about how news gets made, so PR people and news people can work better together to make information better for the audiences that receive that news. So if you're interested, send a DM to the PR Podcast on Twitter. Tell us your unique story about how you do what you do, and you'd like to be a guest, and we will get you booked for an upcoming episode. Now, this week's guest is a really special and important one for me, so let's get into it. Peter Haskell is a veteran radio reporter in New York City, covering just about every major news story that's happened here over the last several decades. Now, as a gentleman newsman, and I mean that sincerely, he is able to tell complicated stories in mere syllables. He's an amazing writer. He recently retired from his career in radio for a very specific reason. He wanted to come on the show to share his perspective on it. Peter, a very warm welcome from me to the PR Podcast.
Jody, thanks for the invite. It's great to be with you. Thank you.
I'm thrilled that you wanted to come on the show because you had something really special and important you wanted to talk about. First of all, congratulations on closing the book on your radio career in New York City. But let's talk about why you decided to step away from the radio microphone right now.
Sure. So several years ago, I noticed a change in my voice and was diagnosed with a condition called spasmodic dysphonia, which has impacted my ability to do what I've done my whole career. There's no cure for it. It's not life-threatening, which is the good news, but it is career-threatening for me. And so as time went on, I was treated, the treatments worked, and they didn't work as well. At the end of the day, it just became very difficult for me to do my job day to day. And I decided it was time to step away from the microphone, which was difficult because it is a job that I've absolutely loved. And I'll just give a quick plug. If you are interested in more information about spasmodic dysphonia or other vocal disorders, there is a website you can go to, dysphonia.org, dysphonia.org, dysphonia.org.
It's a really important topic, and I know obviously very important to you. Your voice has changed over the years. It sounds as though it is more strained, but you assured me that it's not a painful condition, right? It's just something that alters the sound of your voice.
Correct. So it doesn't hurt to speak. It's not a challenge to speak. Sometimes it's a challenge to be heard. And that's one of the problems that I have. In a quiet space, it's easy. In a loud space, it's difficult. So my health is otherwise excellent, which is good, very good for me. But it has impacted my ability to be on the radio.
How many people are affected by this nationwide?
So this particular condition, 50,000 have been diagnosed in North America. So it's a very small number. There are other vocal conditions with different numbers of people, but it is a very rare condition.
And you gave out the website there. It really is kind of I had never heard of it until you explained it to me. What kind of resources are available to people on the website or through organizations locally? I mean, can people get treatment? Can they get support for it? How does the future look for you personally and for other people with this same condition?
The website offers resources you, like me, and most people did not know a lot about it. So if someone has a vocal disorder, they can go on it and see various kind of conditions. They can uh, look for a doctor for a particular condition and based on their location. And I think it just provides information and resources that they might not otherwise be familiar with.
Are there therapies or are there other types of prognoses that help with the condition? I mean, what is in the future for you personally?
There is a treatment that I've been getting for a number of years, and long story short, it is a uh, Botox injection of into the neck to deaden the muscle that controls the vocal cords and tries to limit the spasmodic dysphonia. So the treatment worked great for years, but in the past couple of years, it has not been quite as effective.
It must have been an incredibly hard decision for you to make. And you and I have talked privately about the discussions you had, both with your family, obviously the thoughts you had personally, but also the discussions you had with the radio station that you work for. And you told me about the incredible support that everyone has given you.
Yeah, look, I mean, this is not the way I expected my radio career to end. It is not the path that I would have chosen, but we don't get to choose the circumstances we're dealt. And so we face our reality and we move forward, and that's what I'm doing. I'm at peace with my decision. Again, it's not my ideal choice, but it is what it is, and I'm going to move forward. I'm going to look for a job. I'm going to see what I can find that I can use whatever skills I have to help an organization. And that's what I'm going to do. And I feel very fortunate that this condition is not life-threatening. We all know people of all ages who face very serious and chronic illnesses that impact the quality of their lives. And I feel fortunate that, for now, this condition is not going to pose those kinds of problems for me.
Well, I think I know. Let me rephrase that. I know, and you said it best that this is a career-altering, but not a life-threatening condition. And I know that your skills as a master writer, a master storyteller, and just an all-around smart and wonderful guy, that there are amazing things in your future here. Let's talk about some of the things that you've done over the last 30 years. Let's talk
Sure.
about that amazing radio career.
Sure. So, I mean, the furthest thing that comes to mind is like I covered 9/11. I've covered every anniversary ceremony since then. I've covered all kinds of 9/11 issues from rebuilding to health, which is critical. I covered the Sandy Hook shooting, the Miracle on the Hudson, 8 national political conventions, 4 New Hampshire primaries, 7 World Series, 2 Super Bowls, 20 plus New York City marathons. When bin Laden was killed, I went to Ground Zero. I covered the Bridgegate trial, the Megan Kanka trial, the little girl who was killed that led to Megan's Law. I've covered corruption trials. I've covered shootings, earthquakes, Superstorm Sandy, other hurricanes, politics. I covered when Elliot Spitzer, the governor of New York, announced that he was caught up in a prostitution scandal, when Anthony Weiner, the congressman from New York, was involved in a sexting scandal with an underage girl, or should I say girls. And so I've covered the gamut of things, and it has been so incredibly rewarding. I just feel so fortunate that I've got to see all the things that I've seen and met all the people that I've met, and I had the experiences that I've had. I covered an earthquake in Haiti, which was really powerful. And it's just been great fun. And I just feel very, very fortunate.
You are a voice that is very familiar to everybody in the New York City area. They turn on their radio and Peter Haskell is there. And you've been someone who has delivered incredibly important factual information. I feel like listeners probably have been comforted knowing that you're the guy delivering that information because they know you, they trust you, they welcome you into their homes and their cars and their lives. And just observing some of the things that have been written on social media the last couple of weeks since you announced your retirement, it really hits home. Not surprising to me at all, knowing you for the last, few decades that we've known each other. What has that been like? That outpouring of affection from people? It's got to be satisfying.
It's very satisfying, gratifying, and honestly, wholly unexpected, and honestly, a little bit overwhelming. People have been so kind and so nice and so. People appreciated what I've done, and I never paid attention to that stuff. I was always very focused, go tell the story. I didn't get caught up in the peripheral things, and I never sought attention for myself. I just went, I did the story, and then I did the next story, and then what we would do 2 or 3 stories a day, then I would go home, and the next day I would do it again. And the fact that people have noticed, frankly, is surprising to me, but I am so appreciative and so gratified. I mean, it's been, again, overwhelming for me.
You mentioned a lot of those stories that are kind of like mile markers, right? Historical mile markers in news coverage. I mean, like we said, that the biggest news stories you were there for, and you lent your perspective and your humanity to those stories. What do you think that radio does as a medium that is either unique? I don't want to say better than other mediums, TV or print, but how does radio cover news and deliver information in a unique way?
One thing you said before was about being with people in their cars, in their homes, their bedrooms, their kitchens, their living rooms. I think that makes it, in some ways, an intimate medium, and people read their newspaper and watch their TV, but there's something about what I've always felt was a one-on-one connection. And my job is to tell you the story. And we don't have pictures with radio, but we have audio, and we try to bring people places with the sounds of the places where we're at. So, for example, if I'm covering a fire, you might hear a siren in the background. You might hear the sound of fire hoses trained on a fire. We're going to try, if I'm covering a ball game, I want you to hear the chants of "Let's go Yankees" or "Let's go Mets" and the roar of the crowd. And we try to bring people there with the audio, what we call natural or nat sound, and with the words that we use. And part of what we do is try to bring people to where we are, try to describe for them what we're saying. One of the last stories I did was a Sandy anniversary story, and it was about this section of Staten Island, the Oakwood Beach section, where they bought up this property and basically returned it to nature. So I've got the sound, and you kind of hear birds and maybe a little bit of the ocean nearby. And I said, this section of Oakwood Beach has been swallowed by nature, soaring phragmites on one block and delicate wildflowers on another. So I'm trying to paint a picture that you can see in your mind with the audio of the birds or an airplane flying overhead, and try to bring you there. And I think that is real, for me, that's part of the joy of radio, and it's what I've always loved about it.
It's what I always loved about it too when I was a radio reporter, and I carry that sense with me in the work that I do now as a PR pro. You have to be, and I'm complimenting you here as well as everybody in radio. You have to be an amazing writer. There's no toning that down. You have to be an incredible writer in radio, because you've got to tell a story in what's a package now, 35, 40 seconds. Is it
45 seconds? Back in the day it was 35 seconds. And you make a really good point. I mean, you're telling a story. You're not just reading out facts. Reading out facts is not going to, I mean, you might get some of the same information, but it's not going to have the same context. It's not going to have the same feeling. It's not going to have, some stories bring emotion. And I think there is a real knack to writing a 45-second story.
It's 2 sentences. It's literally 2 sentences.
It seems that way. And, I would contend, not every story, but a lot of the stories that I try to tell and the radio reporters try to tell actually have a beginning and a middle and an end. And when you think 45 seconds, you're like, how can you have a beginning, a middle, and an end? But that's really the goal. And look, if anybody could do it, it's not like what radio people do. It's not that we're so brilliant. I mean, some people are. I'm not one of those people. But
get out of here.
But there's a knack to it. If you write a TV story with pictures that's 90 seconds, there's a knack to that. And if you write a 500-word newspaper story, there's a knack to that. And for me, just radio has been something that I've always loved, I've had a passion for, and I think there is a real skill to it, but it's not like people can't learn that skill. People learn that skill, they hone that skill. And until my final day on the job, I was trying to do better than the day before and turn out the best possible story that I could do. And honestly, I think this is true of any business. You have to be responsible for your own quality control. So I did a voice track on the story. I put in sound bites. I put in the nat sound. I mixed it all together. And I listened. So I listened to it 2 or 3 times. I played it the final time and I found there was something in it that just wasn't right, didn't sound right. I cut it again, started from the beginning, did the voice track again, remixed it, produced it. You have to be your best quality control person because there might not be someone else who's going to catch your mistake. And if you make that mistake, it's on you. And that's true if you're a reporter, you're a PR, you're a consultant, you're writing a document, you are responsible, and you don't want to be going home and thinking, oh my God, how did I let that go? You don't want somebody else saying, are you paying attention to your job? So I think it's one of those things that is true across any business that you're in, any job that you have.
That's a great point. I remember a story when I was a young desk assistant in another New York City newsroom, and long story short, was reporting in information to the editor about a potential fatality at a fire. And the editor refused to use the information I gave him. And his reasoning was that I hadn't checked it enough. And I'll never forget what he said to me. You can't unkill a guy.
True.
His family is listening. You can't unkill a guy. And that has stuck with me forever, right, to this day. And this is 30 years ago. You have to your point, and it's so great to hear you say it, that you have to be your own quality control because millions of people are listening to you.
And I think the other point that you just made is something that I've always taken to heart, and somebody's family is listening. The people that we talk to are our neighbors and our friends, and it's somebody's child, and it's somebody's spouse, and it's somebody's parent. And I've always tried to take great care in speaking to people in a way that I would want somebody speaking to my parent or my spouse or my child. And I just think, and honestly, most of the reporters that I know do that. And there are people out there who don't do that. And when I see people treated with that kind of disrespect, it really makes me, I don't know if it makes me angry, but it makes me very upset.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. You mostly, in the last couple of decades of your career, have covered the things that are happening. I mean, news is very nimble, right? Anywhere you can put a microphone and a phone, you can have a radio reporter in a way that it's a little more complicated to put a TV reporter there. It's a little more complicated. And obviously print is, somewhat delayed simply by the medium, right? Where even if it's digital, it takes a little time to get out. Radio can be instantaneous. It can be live anywhere all the time. It's another thing that I used to love about being a radio reporter. But everyone, so you're covering a lot of breaking news, or you're covering the news of the day, but every once in a while, you would interact with PR professionals as well. You'd get stories that are pitched to you. And I know we've talked over the years about some things that PR folks do that you take issue with, or that you'd maybe like to and I see you chuckling, or at least pass on some friendly advice. So give some insight as to why PR people, or how PR people can do a better job, specifically with a radio reporter like you.
Here is my number one PR pet peeve, number one by far. And it doesn't happen that often, but it happens far too frequently. You send me a news release pitching a story and or an expert, and I call you and you tell me they're not available today. So this hasn't happened a lot, but it's happened more than once, twice, or three times, far too frequently. If you are pitching a story, be prepared to have your subject expert available. Now, look, if you tell me I've got this person booked, from 10 to 2, and they're free at 2:30, I get it. But don't tell me they're out of town, they're out of pocket, they're not available. Don't send me the release until they're available. So that's number one. Number two, I think you should make it known where we can find you. So if you have a website, a general email at the very least. If you don't have a PR person at your organization, I understand that. Have a general email, preferably a phone number, where I can say, I am doing this story. In radio, we turn it around quickly. If I interview you, Jody, in an hour from now, roughly speaking, sometimes less time, sometimes more, in an hour, your story is going to be on the radio. So have the phone number, because look, if it's a good story, you're going to want your client or your organization represented in that story. If it's a bad story, you want to have the opportunity to get your point of view across. And here's the thing. If I do a story and somebody's blasting your company and I call you and you don't return my call, I don't care. It doesn't cost me anything. Jody Fisher couldn't be reached for comment. Jody Fisher, sometimes the client comes, you couldn't be reached. It doesn't change anything for me. I'm trying to be fair. I want to give you the opportunity. If there's a phone number there, I can reach somebody. Hey, I just want to let you know, we're doing a story. We'd like to get your side of the story. We'd like to get your comment. It helps you to do that. So good story or bad story, I think you want to be available and have the opportunity to put your thoughts forward. I think other things, less significant, know who you're pitching. People would send me, I'd get, I don't know how many emails from PR people every day, dozens every day. And it was clear that many of these people had no idea what they did or what I did. And they would just send out stuff about, look, and I'm not saying it's a particular subject matter, but just the type of story. I like fluffy stories. I like feature stories. And the last thing I would say, and I know you're really good at this, is connecting with reporters. Don't give me the hard sell. Hey, listen, I can help you if I can help you. I can help you with this. If I can help you with that, let me know. If people I know call me or email me, I will get back to them. And I might say, you know what, thanks for the offer. I can't help you today, or I like the story, or I'm going to say, I don't like the story. I like the story. I can't do it today. I don't like the story, but I'm going to respond to you. But if you're blindly sending 100 emails out to people that are complete strangers, and it's, the topic is not responding to some breaking event, good luck to you, basically.
I don't want to put you on the spot here, but along the lines of those like just completely missed the mark style pitches, is there one maybe over the years that's has stood out? I was just reading an article today about a satiric. It wasn't satirical, but it was very funny about a reporter who decided they were going to have their own PR day of yes, where he decided to do a story on every PR pitch he got and ended up doing stories that are just completely ridiculous and on and on. You get the drift. Is there one that sticks out to you that was just so ridiculous it was funny?
So before I get to that, I'm going to apologize for what I would qualify as my rant about PR, because that's what it was. I hope it was helpful, but
it's nothing we've never heard before, man.
You got me on a roll. I'm going to tell you one of my favorite stories, and I'm not sure what category this falls into, but I would call it a PR misfire. All right. Many years ago, first day of summer, Snapple decided that it was going to unveil the world's largest popsicle in Union Square Park. So in the middle of winter, it probably sounded like a good idea. On the first day of summer, a popsicle outside might pose problems. So you can guess it's the first day of summer and the popsicle starts melting. So I'll take a half step back. I was assigned the story and my response was, seriously? Like, you want me to cover this fluffy? So I get out there and what's happening? It's like 80 degrees and the popsicle is melting. It's a very large popsicle. So it's created what is akin to an oil slick running into the street, and pedestrians are walking by and they're like wiping out. Cyclists around the corner wiping out. And I'm standing, I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. Like, what is it? And then in the distance, is that a siren? Is that fire truck coming here? The fire trucks came. They closed off 17th Street. The firefighters came out with their hoses and sprayed down the street to clear this oil slick. And what I thought was the most ridiculous story in the world turned out to be one of my favorite stories. But for Snapple, it was for all the wrong reasons. So be careful about what sounds great in December, might not be good in June. And not every story is going to turn out the way you want. So it didn't really answer your question, but I love that story, so I wanted to share it.
In all the years that we have known each other, I've never heard that story. That's a good one. And that is a perfect articulation of one of the other things that I loved about being a reporter myself, but I love talking to other reporters personally, is that you always have a great story to tell. You always had something that happened that never made it to air, it never made it to print, it never made it on the radio. But it's this thing that happened behind the scenes that's just so amazing. And I think people would be shocked and completely entertained at the stuff that happens making the sausage, shall we say, in the news business.
So, Jody, that story was like our lead story that day because it was so crazy. And getting back to that sound, I had the sound of the siren. I had the sound of the fire hose on the street. I had the interview with a guy who wiped out on his bicycle, and I ran up to him like, what happened? He's like, and he just like went off about this oil slick in the street. So, you got to be careful how you plan these things in advance. But again, I'm off on a tangent.
Yeah, no, and careful what you wish for, right?
Exactly. They got plenty of attention for all the wrong reasons.
I wonder if they sold any more Snapple popsicles that day.
Right, exactly.
That is very funny. Well, Pete, this has been a terrific conversation. And, anyone who knows us knows that we could go for hours and hours and hours. I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing some of your perspectives on radio news, and also sharing your perspectives on this really important issue for you personally. I know that whatever happens from here on out for you, it's going to be just a next amazing chapter of your career. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it develops. So thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you for having me. It's been great fun. I love talking radio and news, and always love talking to you through all these years that we've known each other. So it's great to be on, and I appreciate the invite.
All right, now we're going to have a little fun here, as though we haven't been having any fun this whole time.
Fun for who? You or me?
Well, we're going to put you in the hot seat with our rapid fire question portion of the podcast. This is where we steal a page from inside the actor's studio. We ask our guests a series of rapid fire questions meant to elicit just a simple answer. And these are going to be good. I know it. So, Pete, with your indulgence, here we go. Rapid fire question number 1. What is your favorite news source?
So it's kind of obvious, but after 28 years at WCBS-AM on the radio is still my favorite news source.
Rapid fire question number 2. What's your favorite social media platform? You're not a big social media guy, but you're out there.
Not a huge social media guy. I'm not a huge social media fan, but I have used Twitter quite a bit, mostly following news organizations and news people.
Rapid fire question number 3, coffee or alcohol?
Can I say neither? I don't drink coffee at all. And even when I worked the early morning shift, I never did. I'm a social drinker, but now that I've stopped working, I'm trying to make it one of my new hobbies.
I like that approach. That's good. What is in the mug then every day? I mean, if it's not, when you're not a cocktail hour, are you drinking tea? Are you drinking something else?
I'm a water guy. I'm a straight water guy, typically.
I knew it.
Boring. What can I say? I'm a boring guy.
That's good for it. It's good for it. That's how you keep so trim.
There you go.
Rapid fire question number 4. And this is a good one for a radio reporter, man. What is your favorite on the run food?
My favorite on the run food is a chocolate chip cookie or 2 or 3 or 4, if need be. And on many days, that would qualify as lunch for me. So it really is my on-the-go food.
100% believable. Rapid fire question number 5, Pete. And this was a poignant one, actually, considering the place you are in your career. What do you want to be after you finish this career?
So this portion of my career has ended, and I'm at the crossroads, and I wish I had an answer for you, but I don't. I am in the exploratory phase, or the just thinking about trying to figure out what is my path going forward, and I honestly don't know. So not a very good answer to your rapid fire question, but it's the best I've got for you.
Well, whatever it is, like I said, it's going to be amazing. I have no doubt. You are an amazing guy. You're a terrific professional. You are incredibly talented. You are a role model to me. And so thank you so much for all you have done over your career in New York City radio. And we're going to be watching anxiously to see what comes next for Peter Haskell. Pete.
Yeah, you've been very kind. Thank you. It's been great fun, Jody. Thank you.
Well, this has been a great conversation. Please let people know how they can find you online if they want to check you out.
So I'm on Facebook and I'm on Twitter at Peter Haskell880, and that's probably either of those two things. Also Insta, but mostly Facebook and Twitter.
Sounds good. Pete, this has been a great conversation. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please remember to subscribe to the show. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and the TikToks at the PR Podcast. Send us a question or a comment. Our intro is by Christopher Appold. You can find him and his fantastic photography on Instagram at Christopher_APPOLDT. Check him out there and hire him for all your photography needs. You can find me online at Jody Fisher on all the socials and on the web at jodyfisherpr.com. We'll see you next time on the PR Podcast.